Hello, and we are live. Hello, my name is Christian Fischer. I'm your disruptive chef entrepreneur show host. I'm super excited to be with you today. I know I say this every episode, but today I have a really, really special, amazing guy. He's not only an amazing human being, what he has done for business owners and what he does today, you guys gonna be amazed. So with that, let's get started. Hello, again, my name is Christian Fischer. I'm your disruptive chef, entrepreneur host, and I'm really excited to bring you guys Monte Silva. So I met Monte a few years ago with something called Clubhouse. And every time he spoke, I took like a page and a half of notes. And then I had the opportunity to meet him virtually like this. And for me, he changed my life. The way he looks at leadership, the way he looks at coaching, the way he looks at anything. For me, he's not only, a friend of mine, he's also one of my mentors because I live vicariously by the impact he makes. And what he has done is absolutely amazing. So with that, Monte, welcome to the Disruptive Chef Show. I'm excited to have you.
Hi, thanks, Christian. Those are very kind words, and I appreciate you having me on the show. More importantly, I appreciate your friendship and all that you do for our industry. You're definitely one of the rock stars that I try to emulate and make as big of an impact as possible for the people we're trying to help.
That's awesome. So Monte, tell everybody how you gotten into the restaurant industry and how you currently impact the industry with your coaching programs. But congratulations, by the way, to your new book. You're amazing. And now you're also out there as a speaker. So tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and the impact you make.
Yeah, sure. I think I don't think my story is a whole lot different than everyone else's. I started off at 15 and as a dishwasher in a hotel, and worked my way up through the kitchen and then worked my way through the front of the house in hourly positions. I spent about 20 years in the restaurant industry, mostly just kind of making money in my teenage and my 20s, and really trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself. And was one of the millions of people that just never got out of the industry. It something that I was always excited to be a part of. I did go through restaurant management. I spent the last 25 years in restaurant management. Early in my career, I elevated pretty quickly to a GM position for Wolfgang Puck. 4 years after the beginning of my first restaurant job, management job. But like a lot of people, went through some burnout and took a step back, went back to waiting tables in Vegas for a while, kind of worked through that whole thing, and then reemerged in Nashville, Tennessee, got back into restaurant management, and really focused on how to run a successful restaurant group without having to kill yourself. I was in the operation every day, and I learned how to try to maintain some of that work-life balance, to have a healthy relationship, and to continue to move the ball forward with creating great hospitality moments. COVID hit, and at the time I was a director of restaurants for a restaurant group, and I was the only non-family member on the executive team. And so the one position that was eliminated was mine. And I had a brand new 1-year-old son, trying to figure out, what am I going to do now? I got to jump into conversations on Clubhouse and met you and several other great people, and really was encouraged to try to start my own business in helping restaurant owners and executives at a grander scale than just running a particular restaurant group. And spent the last 3 years really focused on building that, and helping as many people as I can.
You're really good in building high performance teams. And for me, I look back through my notes as we met now almost 3 years ago, and you always spoke about, there's a lot of restaurateurs which say, hey, my employees are my biggest asset, but they don't live that. So in your point of view, what are some of the keys for a high performing team in your industry?
That's a good question. I think when it comes to high performance, obviously you have to start with the leader in the organization. I know you're a big fan of John Maxwell, as I
Mhm.
am, and he talks about the law of the lid, where the leader is really the one that determines how big the company can get. It's interesting. I just wrote an article about leadership just recently, but I think it starts with high performance leaders. They have to continue to grow. They have to continue to challenge themselves, and then they need to surround themselves with the best possible people, not
Mhm.
just rock stars, but rock stars that can work together as a team, and then looking to have vision and purpose, and getting everyone aligned with that same vision and purpose.
So you make it sound so easy because you've been in this, you've been really successful, you're coaching around that. How does somebody start? And let's take an average restaurant, mom and pop restaurant. You know what? I got into the restaurant. Things were amazing. COVID hit. I struggled a little bit, but I kind of seemed to work my way out of it. How do you get started? How do you approach creating a positive team culture within a restaurant? And yeah, how do you start? Talk to our listeners a little bit. How do you start? What is the first thing, or what is the three most important things to get going in order to build that high culture team?
Well, I think that finding the right people that fit within that, creating a great culture, training and developing people, um, sharing wins with one another,
Hmm.
celebrating people's successes within the organization. And then I think that there's also need to sometimes, end the toxic people that are in your business. No one likes to let somebody go.
Yeah.
I still get butterflies in my stomach when I have to make a call like that and I'm in a restaurant, but it's part of the process. And I liken it to agriculture. I think
Yeah.
you and I may have spoken on this before, but if you look at agriculture, which has the word culture in it, culture is the soil. Is it a nutrient soil that things can grow in? Is your culture something that fosters growth, right? And then
Yep. 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 Yep.
the second thing is, the seed is the teammate. And if you want a restaurant to build a restaurant culture that is hospitable, then you got to find hospitable people.
Yep.
You can't plant an apple seed and hope for orange trees to grow. And so
Yeah.
the seed is, the employee is super important. And then, you know a lot of times I'll pick someone with less experience, but have the right attitude, the right idea about serving others, and I'll spend the time to train them. And so training becomes part of that process. You got to
Hmm.
set people up for success. If they're not ready to execute at a high level, then it's difficult for the team to execute at a high level. Um, and uh, and so training is like watering the seed, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you want it to grow, you got to train it. And then and then providing sunlight. Sunlight causes the seed to grow. The photosynthesis kicks in, and that really is being able to reward people in public and talk about the wins that you have and celebrate those and really acknowledge the people that are really stepping up. And you can do that in a way that doesn't alienate the rest of the team. That's important. Um,
I know you're a big fan of doing your due diligence when you hire. So talk to me a little bit about strategies you recommend by recruiting the right team. And you said you need to do, or everything starts with the right team. How, how do our listeners do that? What strategies do you recommend around that?
I recommend to always be hiring. I
Mhm.
think that we have opportunities to have rock stars come into our organization, and I think that sometimes we look at them as a body,
Yep.
and we're like, okay, check, we've got this body, but we're not constantly evaluating our team. We're not constantly looking for rock stars from the outside. I think that while training people in house is super important. I think for really rapid growth, sometimes you have to go outside. And so I think continuing to look for those kinds of individuals that can really step in and move your company forward is super important. There's a couple examples I like to use that are both sports models. The Yankees. They don't rebuild their teams. They're just constantly reloading. When Jeter was on the team and someone else like A-Rod comes along, the Yankees will make room for that player, right? And then they'll figure out, how do we get these guys to be able to work together? And so I think that if you turn on and off your hiring, whether it's on Indeed or whether you turn away people that walk in your restaurant, if someone takes time to walk in my restaurant, I'm going to make time for them, because it's important to be able to capture those tangibles.
I totally resonate with that. And you always talked about hire slow, fire fast. Talk to us a little bit around that.
I spend the first 30 minutes of a conversation when I'm interviewing someone without asking an industry question. I ask who they are, where they're from, tell me about your family, what do you like to do when you're not in the restaurant? And you really get into who that person is and what they're about. And I'm able to find my best candidates when I take the time to do that. I've hired people that volunteered for the blind. It's like, that's somebody that cares about human beings, and because hospitality is such a big part of my brand and what I do and what I coach and teach. That's a category that you're not necessarily going to see on a resume. You've got to pull that information out of people. And so I spend the first 30 or so minutes focused on who they are, getting to know them, telling them. Then I spend some time telling them about me, who I am, how I run restaurants, what I'm looking for. And I almost try to get you to not want to work there. Where I'm actually asking qualifying questions that will make me think that this person is a good fit. And I want to make sure that they think that I'm a good fit with them. If my restaurant isn't going to fulfill their needs, then it's not going to be a long-term thing, because you really want to create that retention of employees.
So I love what you just said. So now I have the right guy, I have the right team. How do you retain them, and how do you retain high performing team members, because everybody's looking for those? So talk to us a little bit, some strategies you recommend for somebody to keep an employee which outperforms.
Well, you have to become the employer of choice, right? So culture is part of that. Mutual respect. I think that this, Christian, better than anyone. As we were growing up in the industry, working in kitchens and everything else, we were treated like crap. We were stodging for people that would throw pots and pans at us if we didn't saute the fish right. We grew up in that brigade kind of philosophy, and the people today they're not willing to put themselves in those positions, and so they're looking for some mutual respect. They're looking to be appreciated. They're looking to be part of something bigger than they are and to make a difference. They do want to be pushed. I tell people, when I'm going through the hiring process and the training process, I tell them, look, I'm going to push you to be the best version of yourself every single day, and you're going to make mistakes, but I just need you to show up and do your best. And so when you create that respect, that level of respect for the people around you, and you create something bigger than what you are, and you can talk to people about what is it like to create an experience for someone that's so memorable that it actually changes their life. And I'll give an example. I had a manager notice that actually the host noticed that there was a gentleman in the lobby and he was sobbing, and she could have just kind of given him his space and not gone over there, but she went up and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he broke down and said that he was there for a concert, and his son had just died in a car wreck, and he was supposed to go to the concert with his son. And so the host passed that information off to one of my managers. Managers got involved, and we had a connection with the band, and we got the band to create some signed swag for him. Invited him backstage at the concert. And it's, those kinds of situations that we don't think we can be part of in the restaurants. So often we're so focused on product and execution that we don't take a moment to think about these kinds of things. And so I think when you create mutual respect and you're all working towards a common goal that's bigger than yourself and actually means something more than just put a nice piece of fish on a plate,
Mhm.
serving a great cocktail, I think you really get the team to buy in, and that's where I focus.
In your book Shift Happens, you talk a lot about culture and how to create that culture. So, what is a myth or something you feel is overrated around creating culture? You simplify it, and every time I talk to you, you make it sound so simple, because you've been in it so long and you're very good in what you do. Talk to us a little bit about creating that sense of culture everybody buys into.
Well, I think that you can't overpromise and underdeliver. I don't think that there's really anyone that is going to write an Indeed ad that says our culture sucks. Come join the team, right? We all have these grandiose ideas of what that looks like, um, but if you're not committed to show up every single day to do the right thing, it makes it very difficult. I think
Mhm.
that we think, as far as a false belief, I think if we put something on the wall in our, company, a mission statement, or we put it in our training documents, that somehow those printed words are going to actually carry over into reality. And I think that you've got to start with the leader. I wrote a column. I write a column called "Shift Happens," same as the book, and I did an article called "The Convertible Culture," and I talk about how you've got to, just like driving a convertible car, you've got to drive culture with the top down, which
I love
means
that.
your leadership has to take care of your management, your middle management, and if they don't, the staff is going to see that, and your culture is just going to be writing on the wall.
So we hired the right person. We created a culture of excellence. So you also talk about staff training. Talk to us a little bit. What is important around training, not just training, for skills. What other trainings do you recommend within any successful restaurant or a successful industry?
I mean, soft skills, especially
Mhm.
from your management team, they have to be leaders, and so soft skills are super important. If they're hourly employees, they have to have soft skills that show empathy towards other people, whether it's their teammates or, in the case of the story I just told, the host being empathetic to a man that's obviously upset. Um, so that's a lot harder to train than hard skills,
Mhm.
which is one of the reasons why I spend a lot of time when I'm interviewing trying to find out what kind of soft skills that candidate has.
Mhm.
Um, but I think you can still train someone by modeling that. If you're showing that whole phrase, "Do what I say, not what I do." I mean, is there anybody that that is inspired by that?
I,
Um,
I used to be in the early 80s.
yeah.
Not anymore.
I think that looking at our people as assets.
Mhm.
I think that for 50 years, they were a liability on the P&L under the labor category. And so when you're a liability, your goal is to undertrain people, right? To not spend the
Mhm.
amount of time needed. But if you look at them as an asset on a balance sheet, then they're actually an asset that can appreciate. And by training and developing and putting
Yeah.
some time into them, you can really create something bigger.
So, Monte, in your career, and I want to make a little bit of shift. You came from that operation background. You kind of build a very successful business with your coaching, what you do, and I want to have you talk a little bit more how you serve restaurants in that market, and then I'm interested in learning a little bit more on what was going through your mind. What steps did you take to went from operator to business owner? Number one, and how do you kind of sustain that for a long period of time. And now you added being an author to that. And you know me, I'm a big fan of people writing books. I think everybody should have a book, and therefore we created our 8 weeks to finishing a book model, because I honestly believe everybody has a passion, a story, something really good at. They need to share it. So talk to us about, how do you first service your currently your clients within your restaurant coaching model, and then talk to us a little bit what went through your mind going out and saying, "Hey, I need to start something on my own."
Yeah. So most of what I've done so far, and I'm kind of expanding on that in 2024, but most of what I did was 90-day coaching,
Mm-hmm.
where I would do one-on-one with restaurant owners. And I found that that was more successful than consulting.
Yep.
I think when you consult, you're giving a man a fish. When you're coaching, you're teaching them to fish. I always have stories, and a lot of them have to do with sporting analogies and things like that. But if you think about the United States, every single person in the U.S. knows that if you eat right and you work out, you're going to be in shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we have an obese country of people that are overweight. And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily grossly overweight, but we're not optimizing our bodies at the maximum capacity because we're not willing to do the things we know we need to do to get there. And
Mm-hmm.
so um, if you're a consultant in the restaurant industry, you're kind of like the consultant that'll write a meal plan and give you a workout plan and then go, all right, pay me for that. Now, here you go, buddy. And they're on their own. And a lot of times it takes motivation. And so if you operate more like a personal trainer, which is what a coach does, then you're not only helping them put those things in place, but you're coming along, changing mindsets, changing habits, and helping them do that. And so I think that's a big part of why I
Mm-hmm.
chose coaching over consulting. I know that there are consultants that they call themselves consultants, but really act more like a coach. But I felt like a coach really needed to be how I operated. And so whether it's right now I have a client in Illinois that's got a couple restaurants in Illinois, one in Tennessee. We just signed an LOI for a second location in Tennessee. We have a franchise deal set up in Arizona. We're looking to expand that brand. I have another client that started off in Richmond, Virginia, just opened a second location in West Virginia, in Fayetteville, and now they're looking to scale and grow. And those two clients I've worked with for more than one 90-day session, and they're really crushing it. But those have all been almost entirely Zoom,
Yep.
emails, phone calls, text messages. I have been to both their locations once to meet with the team and kind of work on that. So that's really what I do mostly. And sometimes it's coaching calls with their management team if we're trying to get the management team to a certain level. Sometimes it's coaching call with the owner, trying to help them work on their business instead of in their business.
Mm-hmm.
I did just sign a client here in Florida, which is they're about 30 minutes away. So that's going to be nice to be able to spend a little bit more time in the restaurant. But my coaching is really geared towards being able to do it, online, virtually,
Yep.
or in person.
Do you see successes doing it virtually versus in person? Do you find that there's a big difference between those two?
Well, I'll let you know in a few weeks when I really can dig into this local client. But the clients that I've worked with have been able to really execute at a high level and hit all of their goals. And then it's funny when your head's down and you're working on your business. I know you know this, Christian. You don't have to deal with it as much now that your head is up and you can kind of focus on big picture stuff. But when you get down into the nitty gritty and the details, um, sometimes it's like I just need to get through today.
Yeah.
And once I help clients be able to step back because their restaurant is operating to some degree without them, then they start to get excited about, hey, well, if I did this, maybe now I can do this, and their
Mhm.
vision for their company grows. And I've been able to do that virtually for several clients, which has been great. And I've met, like I said, I've met them briefly in person, but almost everything's been done virtually. I am going to be speaking at Bar and Restaurant Expo in March in Vegas, and
Congratulations. That's awesome.
and two of my clients are actually going to come out there with me and hang out with me. So it'll be really good to be able to deepen those
Mhm.
relationships. But I think things can work virtually because it allows me to kind of stay above the fray and be able to look
Yeah.
in with
Yeah.
eyes that aren't in the
I
thick.
totally agree. For us, 80% what we do is on this platform. We kind of upgraded. We use some overlays over Zoom, so Zoom doesn't feel like Zoom. We invested into better visuals because I want them to have a great experience. And it also kind of shows, hey, high quality camera, great lighting. You know what? They're a step above anything else. So for us, that's for me, virtual, I think is here to stay. Thanks to COVID, we a little bit more easy on that. So, but now for the last few minutes, help me understand a little bit. How did you make that pivot from an operator to owning your own business? And talk to me a little bit what you would recommend to somebody being in the same shoes. They feeling they want to make an impact. They want to do something else. They're really, really good at something. They want to share something with the industry. What advice would you have somebody to do what you did and make that switch into business ownership?
Well, I think having a certain why, your why is super important. Why do you do what you do?
Mm-hmm.
And for 25 years in restaurant management, my why was providing phenomenal guest experiences, being able to work the room and talk to guests and get that instant feedback was really special for me. When I
Mm-hmm.
was able to when I was able to personalize the experience, if someone came in and it was their first date since the husband came back from serving, our country overseas, that's a special moment. And it was quite an honor to be able to create, a special experience in those scenarios for people. And so that was my why for a really long time. Then it kind of shifted a little bit into also creating, opportunities for my people to grow. I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
kids. For up until 4 years ago, and so um, being able to see my restaurant kids grow up and go on to be chefs and somms and GMs and other things really made me feel really really good. So that was my why on the operational side, and when I got to Nashville, um, I was really able to change the culture and restaurant environment in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And when COVID hit, that was abrupt, and it was the first time where I didn't have a ton of offers on the table, and because Nashville shut down pretty tight, and so
I remember that.
the opportunity to stay there and run restaurants at my level, there wasn't really opportunity or money for that. I had a 1-year-old son, and my why became, okay, now I've got a child to care for and take care of, and try to build something for the future. And so I moved to Florida during COVID and took a restaurant GM managing partner job, and
Mm-hmm.
did that, working 50 hours a week, focused on that, and making sure that I was successful in that arena. And started building the coaching platform on the side, and I think it moves slowly. I've talked to people like you and Troy Hooper, and they're like, "Dude, you're crushing it." You're for the fact that up until 2 months ago, I had a full time restaurant. I was an operator full
Mm-hmm.
time, and now I have a successful business that's transitioned. But I think you've really got to understand what's your why and what are you willing to risk uh, to
Mm-hmm.
fulfill and follow that dream.
I mean, it for me that's really important, and you said the right thing. For me, my motivation always was, with my children, I wanted my children to have choices. For me, that became everything. And it went so far that we built a program around it, which we call the Choice Maker Blueprint, where we teach people to do what I did, make that pivot out of the industry and start something on your own. I love what you said, and for me, I seen that that growth you always had around your thing. You said I started small on the side. I ran a 50-hour-a-week restaurant, and you built something really successful. That's something we want to teach a lot of restaurateurs, chefs, and food enthusiasts to do that. Because for me, I honestly believe what changed for me everything, and I'm sure you're in the same shoes. The moment I started working for myself, I never worked more than I do now, but it's different. And now I finally understand when somebody says, "Hey, I never worked a day in my life," because for me, this doesn't feel work. For me, I make an impact and I provide value. And for me, that changed everything. So talk to us when you start out and there's those pivots where you feel like, you know what, I don't see my side hustle to gain any ground. I don't see it to make an impact. How do you keep going? Because there is those roadblocks. How did you work through that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't think we ever completely stop, struggling with, with our own idea of where we should be.
Hmm.
You're an A-type personality. I don't think we're ever satisfied. We're always trying to get to the next level. Um, I learned to celebrate some successes along the way,
Hmm.
to be able to look back and be grateful for what I did have.
Yep.
I was very fortunate to have friends like you and other people that were willing to root me on and be fans and go before me and set the example of how things could be. I think 2023 was really a breakout year for me. I started speaking at conferences. I spoke at Bar and Restaurant Expo. I spoke at the Next Gen Restaurant Summit in Atlanta. I started writing a column, Shift Happens, for FSR Magazine. I co-anchored on several restaurant news shows on Cisco, Canada's SBK Media. I picked up new clients. I continued to work with existing clients. I started a newsletter called Restaurant Success, and then my book should be out in March. Originally, that was an ebook. You actually wrote a really nice piece in
No,
there when it
no,
was an
it was
ebook.
amazing, and I appreciate you allowing me to look at. I still refer back to a lot, and I think it's an amazing piece of work you put out.
Well, thank you. It's gonna be 3 times as long soon, so it's gonna be. I think that the goal is like 70,000 words, something like that. So I'm just
Yeah.
about there. I'm doing some final rewrites, but it was a really good year. But the thing that really I think allowed me to step into more of a full time
Mhm.
opportunity was I came up with 3 words that are kind of my motto now for my business plan. And I know you do this. I mean, you're involved with so many different things, and I would be willing to bet that you have a very similar approach to this. And these 3 words were super helpful for me. So if I can kind of share them with people that are
Absolutely.
looking to pivot,
Yeah.
the first one is create. When I started, I didn't know uh, what my business was going to look like. I didn't know how to attract clients. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to
Mhm.
create content. I didn't know any of that stuff. And so I just started writing, and I wrote a blog for a long period of time in LinkedIn. And it eventually became the column that I write for FSR Magazine. And I was doing some things. I was creating some video content, and then connect. So create and then connect. And I was going to conferences, and I was meeting people through social media and things like Clubhouse. I know we met on Clubhouse,
Mhm.
and then collaborate. And that's been really the turning point for me this year. Collaborating with FSR Magazine for my column, collaborating with some conferences, collaborating with Cisco Canada, create, collaborating on just some things that I've been able to do through
Mhm.
podcasts. And now I'm next year, in 2024, I'm going to continue to focus on create, connect, and collaborate. I'm going to co-write a book with Scott Turner, who's a restaurant he has a restaurant hospitality company in England, in London. Him and I are going to write a book together. So I think that if you can just create, connect, and collaborate, and you can
I love
look to
that.
people that are further ahead of you and pick their brain and gain some insight, and then just take some time to stop and just be grateful for where you are. I think that that's what helps me get through those struggles of wanting to quit.
Hmm.
Seeing my son and knowing that I'm sitting in my office at home right now and he's in the other room, and when I'm done I get to go play with him. That's a big
That's
thing for
amazing.
me.
But
So
by the way, the word create really connects with me. you know, we started the word create is because my strong opinion, we create in language. When we have conversations which are different than we had in the past, we start thinking differently. If we think differently, we act differently. If we act differently, we have different outcomes. So for me, create always meant we creating conversations. So have conversation, provide value, and do this on a daily basis. And that became our slogan. So with that, Monte, I know we can talk forever. And I look, we went way over half hour. So for me, first off, congratulations on your success on 23 and all the amazing things you have done. So I really admire your not just work ethic, but you put yourself out there on a consistent basis and you do some amazing work. So how can our listeners get a hold of you?
if you are interested in just learning more about the topics that I write about, you can follow me on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. That's where I post my column with FSR Magazine. That's where my newsletter is. You can go to www.montesilvacoaching.com
Mhm.
and book a free 30-minute session if you want to find out how I could potentially help you as a client, coaching client. I am going to be doing some mastermind group things next year. You can find out more about that on the website as well. I have a YouTube page called Restaurant Success with Monte Silva. You can get me there, but the goal is just to help as many people as I can, and to work with great people like you. I know that you wouldn't own 9 companies if you weren't collaborating. So I think that we speak the same language.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And so, for any of our listeners, if you haven't done so, please make sure you bookmark this, you share this with your friends. If you find value in this, please, I encourage you, get on the Montes website, book one of those 30-minute free sessions. It's going to make all the impact in your life. And if you feel like you are in a place in your restaurant where you need somebody who is a real partner, not just a consultant, there's nobody better than Monte Silva. So you guys need to check him out. Also, if you can, please look below. All the show notes are below. We have all of Monte's information below, so you could click and just make sure you get a hold of him. Also, please check out disruptivechef.club, which is our private community where we share some new insights, where you get a sneak peek on some of the upcoming shows as we going live here. Also, we're going to see some side interviews and some side rants of some stuff we are internally working on. And we kind of give you a little bit of behind the scene peek of how we put this together. Monte knows 3 years ago, I did it in my dining room at my house, and now we have a full blown studio. So we've been really lucky to do that. Again, check out the show notes, check out Monte Silva, check out the Disruptive Chef Club, and we appreciate you being here. So, Monte, any last words of wisdom or advice do you have to somebody starting their own business? What would you tell them? Give them one tool.
Find a mentor that's done it before, and be open to learning and growing. And none of us are as smart as all of us, and we never stop learning. No matter how long we're in the industry.
I love that because we all need somebody who sees in us what we don't see ourselves. I totally agree. I'm a big fan of mentorship. And you know that with our mastermind, where we coaching and mentoring people through this, it's, I think, the single biggest impact in my life. Because if you get somebody who has done what you want to do, it could take you 10 years to do it on your own, or you could partner with somebody and they can do it in a very short period of time. So for me, I absolutely love that. So with that, Monte, I want to say thank you for being here today. I really appreciate the gift of your time. Thanks for what you not just do for me, what you do for our industry. You've been a constant inspiration. I really appreciate that. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here today. Remember to disrupt the kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry. I'm Christian Fisher, your disruptive chef, entrepreneur, host. I'm signing off on Be That Change, Be The Chef who sets the world on fire. Until next time, stay disruptive. Thanks, everybody.